As an industry, product management in the B2B world needs to spend a little less time listening to the users. I know that will sound like a hot take for many people, but hear me out. With just a little redirection of effort, product people can make a step change in the market performance of their products. The mantra of many product groups is listen to your users. You'll see it everywhere on LinkedIn, you'll hear about it on podcasts, even be taught about it in the product management courses. However, I'm here to tell you that if all your energy is going into understanding your users and building the ultimate user experience, it's pretty likely you will lose the long game to your competitors. There are a bunch of reasons why this is true, and what I'm sharing here, it isn't theoretical. It's the culmination of decades of learning, sometimes the hard way, about what works and what doesn't. The first thing you should be aware of in the B2B world is that users are typically very detached from the people whose problems you're ultimately trying to solve, the buyers. In B2B, the economic buyers are often far more senior than the users and can even be in different departments altogether, and the buyer stakeholders are far more diverse. So consider a typical larger company. They will often have stakeholders in the buying process from IT, from security, operations, procurement, legal, and of course the department whose budget will ultimately pay for your software. In larger purchases, CFO level sign off is also typically required. So I'm just going to say this the most blunt way I can. Most of those people will generally not care all that much about the end user's experience as long as it doesn't trigger a revolt. Why? Two reasons. One, the stakeholders generally won't be using it. And two, they are looking for business benefits that the software will bring. Now, it may be the case that something about your UX is compelling enough that it saves end users vast amounts of time and perhaps reduces errors and bad data. If you can quantify that, do it. That's a business level benefit that the buyers will want to hear about. However, most companies feel they have a superior UX, but it doesn't translate into anything tangible for the buyers. And if that's the case, they won't care. Another issue that comes from talking to users at the expense of buyers is that users will generally help you make your existing product better. Wait, why is that an issue? Well, they will generally not do a very good job of helping you make it more valuable, and I've said this before in other videos. In this way, you spend inordinate time and effort making each feature the very best that it can be for its users, and you still lose simply because you don't solve as many problems of value as your competitors do. Unfortunately, in the long game, best software doesn't always win. Businesses are reluctant to buy a zillion different products that may or may not work well together in order to solve problems that can be solved by buying one platform from one vendor. And this is why companies like SAP and Salesforce are almost unassailable in their market positions. Their breadth is incredible, and they do solve a large number of buyer problems, even if the user experience is medium to very poor in most cases. Other companies, like Microsoft, they use a portfolio strategy to appeal to buyers. Yes, you need to buy a number of different products, but it's from one vendor, and you can do so at one low price with Microsoft's assurance that they're all built to work together. In many ways, this can be a distinction without a difference to an economic buyer, and I doubt strongly that most people would argue that Microsoft, Salesforce, SAP are particularly renowned for their superior user experiences. Catering to your users can also stifle innovation in your products. Users have already taken on the change that's required to use and learn your software. They usually won't make suggestions that are generational leaps in capability because there's risk to them. The risk of having to go through the throes of implementation, training, and reacquainting themselves with the software again, and the threat that the software eventually grows to the state where their job is minimized. So instead, they'll tend to focus on things that will improve their experience using the software. But the software will largely still do the same things it did before, at least as far as a buyer is concerned. And here we come to the crux of the problem. The buyer will always want you to solve more things, and the users will want you to solve things better. But if we solve things better, the software should be stickier, and activation and expansion should be easier, correct? Are these not good things? Yeah, they absolutely are. And I'm certainly not advocating that you ignore your users altogether. But if you look at your roadmap and you only see depth and no breadth, you're damaging the saleability of your product. Chances are your competitors are gaining ground or surpassing you, at least in the buyer's eyes. So a balance needs to be struck. How do we do that? Is it just 50-50 users versus buyers and we call it a day? Well, I wish it were that simple. Although even that would still yield much better results than just spending 100% of your efforts on your users. The right answer, though, varies with the maturity of the markets you serve. Let's take a look quickly at what will probably be a very familiar graph to most of you. Geoffrey Moore first talked about the product adoption cycle in 1991 in his book Crossing the Chasm, and it still remains relevant today. In fact, I would consider it mandatory reading for product managers and product marketers. It suggests there are 5 major groups that make up a market: innovators, early adopters, the early majority, the late majority, and the laggards. It also states that there's a chasm between the early adopters and the early majority, and this chasm exists because a buyer needs change. Innovators and early adopters see what you're trying to do with the software and are on board for that journey. They're with the vision, they want to go there with you. But their immediate focus, though, is on making the thing you put in front of them work. They will push you to put 90% of your effort into just making the thing that exists a smoother and usable experience for them. Now, what keeps companies in the chasm is that they keep doing this, not recognizing that their next major constituent actually wants something different: completeness of solution. And that means breadth. So to climb out of the chasm, companies must look ahead to what their prospects are needing and put less attention on the customers that they have. Note that I didn't say no attention, I said less attention. While in the chasm, it should probably be 70-30, maybe even 80-20, in favor of unconverted buyers over current users, and maybe even higher than that in some cases, simply because climbing out of the chasm is actually really hard. And many companies, they never actually pull it off, and they just languish there, clawing their way with futility to making an amazing product that is decreasing in value. And they succumb to the bombardment of enhancement requests that come from their user base. As the market saturates and the early majority is consumed, we get back to a group that just wants everything to work well. They have seen the early majority be successful on products like yours and are looking to replicate that. They aren't very risk tolerant, so they won't be driving much new innovation, but they will gladly take your UX improvements and depth capabilities. And here, once again, the pendulum swings back, and it will be 80-20 the other way. 80% will be on user and customer feedback, and 20% will be on unconverted buyer needs. Now, by the time the laggards come along, there isn't much market left. So at this point, you're probably wise to be shifting your investments to other products in your portfolio. I would also not be driving a whole lot of innovation into the product at this point and save all of that energy for the next piece in your portfolio. Instead, I would try to minimize my investments altogether and, place my bets elsewhere. To sum it all up, you do have to listen to your users, yes. However, it isn't as simple as just do that and you'll be fine. In fact, if that's all you do, I guarantee you will not, in fact, be fine. Growing a product revenue stream is something that requires being attuned to your market and having unbiased situational awareness. This comes from allowing your product teams to work, not just with customers, but also on understanding the dynamics of the markets that they serve. This information can be gleaned from analysts, win-loss feedback, trade shows, and so on. I will do a video on that topic in the not too distant future, but let me know in the comments if this is something you'd particularly like to see sooner than later. Keeping the buyers and users balanced is always a bit tricky, but if the product team is empowered to not just deal with customer requests, but also truly investigate their markets and domain, it's possible to build a product that leads the way through the challenges of a maturing marketplace. Thanks everyone for watching, and I hope everyone has a healthy and happy holiday season. See you in the next one.